Can you believe this? You have actually in my mind, like there is a Lawler's list in my mind now that like if something comes up, I will actually add it to the Lawler list, even if I probably would never have watched it. I go, that's one of Lawler's, I need to watch it. Can you believe that you've made your own list in my mind's eye, which is very rare. So congratulations, sir. I watch things just for you.
Happy Halloween and welcome to a special edition of Back to the Podcast with your hosts, Justin Neal and Chris Lawler. Today, we are going to be looking at our favorite, not the best scary movies, but our personal favorites that put us in the spirit around Halloween time.
Have you watched anything that put you in the mood recently, or should we get into our list?
We should get into the list because I did watch something that gets me in the mood, but it's on the list. So I don't want to spoil anything. Okay. Guys, I don't know if you know this, but Justin and I both were Blockbuster employees back in the day, and they always used to allow us to do these employee picks. So take it more like that's the video that we're orienting to. And they're all over the place, and I can't wait to discover what Justin's put together. And I can't wait to show off my list. And of course, I could have put 30 more movies on this one.
There was a lot.
There's a lot to discover, a lot to discuss. Let us know, what is the favorite movie that you like to watch around Halloween time that gets you into the spirit? So let's go ahead and get this started. Justin, do you mind if I take the lead on this one today?
Yeah, let's start with number 10. So let's start at the bottom of the list and work our way to the top, I think.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
This one is actually a surprise that it's one of my favorites because I'm not the biggest Zack Snyder fan, but his Dawn of the Dead remake is still one of my favorites.
Okay.
I really appreciate what he did with that. I like the acting and stuff like that. I like how it's got like a really...
Is that the one in the mall?
Yeah, that's the mall one. Yeah.
Oh, I saw that one.
That he remade. Yeah.
That one.
With Ving Rhames.
Tough to watch.
Yeah, it is.
I remember it being like super depressing.
If you guys watched our episode where I talk about Smile.
Bleak.
It's bleak, but it starts off with a bang.
It's grisly and bleak.
And I love movies that can start off with a good bang, that can really hook you in and be like, what's coming next? If these are the stakes in the first few minutes of the movie,
where are we going to go from here?
What's the rest of it? I think it's got a great sense of humor to it as well.
Cool.
So for me, Dawn of the Dead remake, you've seen this one?
Watchmen is my favorite Zack Snyder movie.
I do appreciate that one for sure.
But I did see this one and I remember thinking like, this is really depressing and bleak and grisly. It's not that I didn't appreciate it. It was like, I appreciate how well this is done and I don't feel so good about myself or the world around me, sort of thing, which well done, Zack Snyder.
So number 10, Dawn of the Dead remake, man. So what is your number 10 slot?
Stanley Kubrick's The Shining is number 10 on my list.
Of course I knew The Shining was going to be on your list. Yeah, that's so Justin to have a Kubrick on his list.
I have to have a Kubrick on there.
Yeah.
I have an anecdote too.
There you go.
1 hour east of here is Mount Hood, and on top of Mount Hood is the Timberline Lodge. The Timberline Lodge was used for the exterior shots in The Shining. Was there. So number 10 on my list, The Shining. It's a classic. It's Kubrick. There's a lot of interesting things I could say. Of course, we don't need to go into all of the Kubrick lore.
You could go into so much detail on one of those.
That's my number 10. So let's go to number 9 on your list. I want to hear what's next.
This one I think was done so well. And that is The Crazies with Timothy Olyphant.
Fantastic.
This one is one of me and the wife's favorites to throw on.
The pitchfork.
The pitchfork.
I remember the pitchfork like scraping along the floor.
Yeah.
I didn't see it.
Oh, dude, you are really depriving yourself. This one is about a town that basically gets... Not really a virus. There was like a plane that had chemicals in it that went down in the marshlands and infected the water and starts changing people,
making
into
them violent.
Okay. Yeah, this kind of thing.
Is it cool because of just like the kills and how gory it gets?
And the tension and how like brutal it is and how like realistic it feels in the sense that, yeah, the government could fuck something up like that and they wouldn't give a damn about a small town like that.
They would from a PR point of view.
Yeah, I mean, it's creepy in that sense. So anyway, The Crazies with Timothy Olyphant, a really tense movie.
All right.
Fun for all ages, I assure you. And yeah, good time. Justin, you should check it out. What is number 9 for you?
Okay, so number 9 on my list is actually not too dissimilar, except it takes place in a different country, and that is a horror comedy classic called Shaun of the Dead.
Oh, right on, yeah.
Written by Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright, and directed by Edgar Wright, starring, of course, Simon Pegg and Nick Frost.
And Nick Frost. Yeah.
I love that movie. It is done so well for what it is.
100%. Yes.
There's something about Shaun of the Dead because it's, it's punk rock, it's indie, it's their first, they kind of had to shoestring it together, and there's an energy and a, passion for what they're doing that comes through in that I adore. And it's done by people who love movies, and they wanted to make an actual horror movie that's also funny as shit. And that's what it is. It's not a comedy that's horror. I think it's kind of like you said with Ghostbusters. It's actually a horror movie with comedic elements to it.
That's one of those movies that doesn't get me in the mood. That's just one of my favorite movies of all time. Then you went ahead and already leaked my number 8 accidentally without even knowing. Ghostbusters is number 8 for me. So perfect.
How about
perfect
that?
Segue, man. I can't believe you didn't even know that. Man, that movie is scary as shit to a child. Like when that came out in the 80s, especially since a lot of it was puppet work and stuff like that. And there's something absolutely terrifying about that stuff.
Actually, the only thing that makes it funny is the cast.
And I think a lot of the humor comes through the characters.
All the humor comes through the characters.
Wasn't a comedy written with horror things. It's a horror with comedy elements.
Because everything else that plays out around them is a horror movie.
I mean, I think that's why it's got the longevity that's got, right? Is because it's one of those movies that just came out, blew everyone away 10 times better than it could have been.
Lightning in a bottle.
Ghostbusters, obviously one of my favorites. We all know, but I love watching that around Halloween. So number 8 for you then?
Okay.
Anything fun like that or something more serious?
This time of year for me, it really puts me in the autumn mood. Not necessarily Halloween, but just autumn, the leaves changing. I want golden red leaves. And that is something we've talked about before, The Village.
Okay.
I love The Village.
The mood, the atmosphere of that
is totally this time of year for me. I love it. We don't need to go into it a whole lot other than it's not about the mystery to me. It's about Joaquin Phoenix and Bryce Dallas Howard, but it's very much moody and of its place, and I like that. So what's number 7 on your list?
Oh, another one that I've definitely brought up, and I've told the story about seeing this one, but Ju-on, the actual Japanese horror original before The Grudge was made in America. This one I think is better than The Grudge. I've actually never really even seen The Grudge because why? This is the one that I need to watch anyway. This is the one that scares the ever-loving shit out of me. And I happen to actually just watch a video today about this and how it's based on an urban legend. And I didn't know that. So it's actually a Japanese urban legend film.
I haven't seen it, but I looked it up on the episode in which you talked about it before. So I watched the trailer. I'll definitely check it out.
The only thing I've never talked about this one, though, is that it's told out of order. It's a horror movie that plays out of sequence, which is not common.
You mean like Pulp Fiction?
And I really appreciate it. Yeah, a little bit, if you will. But like it's a horror film. So that's why it can be a little bit like disorienting the first time you see it, but I've now watched it many times and it's like, oh man, now I understand what's totally going on.
You're like, no, it does play. You just got to go with it.
Not a lot of horror movies like deserve the rewatch that one does. So Ju-on is definitely 7. So then back over to you, man. What is it? Are we cranking up the terror on this next one?
Okay, number 7 is my favorite monster movie, and that is Steven Spielberg's Jaws.
Oh, Jaws. I wasn't even thinking about that. Right on.
It's more of a summer movie in terms of atmosphere.
A little bit.
But it's a monster movie, and it's Universal, so
true.
Damn it counts for Halloween, and it's on my list. But a case could be made that another Steven Spielberg movie is even better for Halloween, and that is E.T. the Extraterrestrial.
What?
It takes place on Halloween.
Well, I guess they go trick-or-treating, and he's dressed up as the ghost, and he meets a Yoda.
I'm just saying, if we were playing categories, I would enjoy arguing for E.T. being on this list. That's all I'm saying.
I would just be like, who invited this guy?
But a monster movie.
That movie scared the shit out of me as a kid.
Do you have a monster movie on your list?
I mean, you're probably going to hate me. One of them has monster in the title, but we'll see what that is here in a second. What are we on? 6 now?
Number 6 to you.
I'm kind of cranking up the terror. This one kind of messes with me just a little bit. Like just a little bit. And I don't know why we just throw it on like late at night before bed, but it's the original Conjuring. movie.
Patrick
That
Wilson
one,
and Vera
yeah,
Farmiga.
from
Formiga,
yeah,
Formiga.
yeah, good
That's who we're
guess.
talking about.
I don't know. I'm probably gonna butcher it
That's
if I
okay.
tried myself. But yeah, that's the one. It's supposed to be based on the true events and stuff like that.
Aren't they investigators, paranormal investigators?
Yeah, yeah. It's like the story before they go to Amityville. The original Conjuring, though, for me is really scary and fun. And the one that me and just the wife really like throwing on. And
Yeah.
I have like a lot of empathy.
That's the idea.
For like the characters and what they're going through on screen. And I think that's what's really doing to me. So anyway, The Conjuring, yada, yada. Love it. Have it on
Okay.
Blu-ray. Can't get enough of it.
I want to watch it.
Have you ever?
No, I haven't.
Have you never seen
I
it?
haven't, so I got to check it out.
Number 6, drum roll for you, is...
Okay, number 6 on my list is Danny Boyle's 28 Days Later.
Oh, nicely done.
That's my zombie movie.
Nicely done. Okay, right on.
So After the Beach, which kind of was unfortunately in America a bit of like a victim of the post-Titanic Leo backlash.
Yeah, but I still like that one.
Beach. A lot of people actually do. I found as
I liked The Beach.
like the further away from it we get, the more people will admit that they actually like it now. I've noticed. But Danny Boyle kind of went away for a year or two and, went and lived his life. But then I remember coming out of a movie in the theater and seeing the poster for 28 Days Later on the wall. And
yeah,
I went, oh my God, Danny Boyle's doing a zombie movie? That's fantastic. And I went and read about it and the fact that they shot it on mini DV. So these were video cameras that they shot handheld. It was all run and gun. They did it really low budget. That's what he wanted to do. That's why it's got that real gritty kind of
Nice.
old school
Okay.
look. It's because they
didn't know
shot
that.
it on video. It's not
Okay.
even technically 1080. It's 480p.
no wonder.
It was actually, I'll put up a picture of it. It's called a Canon XL1 is what they shot it on. It was actually
Okay.
the cameras that I used when I was learning how to shoot. And so when I learned that Danny Boyle made an indie zombie movie using the camera that I used last weekend to make a wedding was really cool for me. You know what I mean? As someone who wanted to
Yeah.
make movies because it makes it theoretically more accessible, the possibility.
Exactly.
And that
Yeah.
was a big thing. And so 28 Days Later has that real raw, gritty feel because of the choices they
didn't
made
know
with
that.
the technology. And I love that. So anyway,
I love that movie as well. I could have easily put that on there.
like, let's start the movie by ripping out the audience's heart.
Yeah, it's
And
so
just leaving
devastating
them
of an intro.
empty and
Yeah.
devastated for the rest of the movie. That's how you start a horror movie.
It's all about setting up hope and ripping it away.
I want the audience to crawl out of the theater
Yeah.
because they have no more will to live. There you go.
I mean, I love the first one. I'm glad you brought that one up. Great movie on the list.
Okay, so that's number 6 for me. Number 5 to you, sir. Bring it on.
5 has 2 movies in its
Okay.
slot, but not because I'm cheating,
I love cheating. I'm going to
but
cheat.
because it's a 2-parter. That's the new It movie, the 2-parter. I grew up on the mini series
Tim
with
Curry.
Tim Curry and stuff, and that one definitely frightened me a little bit, only a little. But this new one really ratcheted
good.
up the visuals and the horror. The second one's a little long, I'm gonna say, but very visually fun movie. Yeah, you've seen it, I'm assuming.
I have, and I totally disagree that the second one's too long. I think they are not long enough. I actually love the new adaptation. They updated it from like the 50s to the 80s for the kids. I thought that worked just fine. And really what carries that movie for me, I thought the casting of the losers is so good, both as adults and as children. Like, I thought they did a great job at adapting something that is almost unadaptable in so many ways because it's so weird.
Right on. So that's where I'm at. Like I said, cheated a little bit, but since it's a two-parter,
It's one story. That's not cheating.
it's one. Yeah. So is your number 5 as good as my number 5? Because definitely it is amazing. So
I think so. It's probably the bleakest one on my list.
we've got a lot of bleak on this list. What is it?
And that is David Fincher's Seven with Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt.
Of course. Yeah. Now talk about mood and atmosphere.
That's one of 2 serial killer movies, but that one's not quite the same as my other one because this one is about, the killer thinks he has a point. And that's
Right.
what makes that movie really so unsettling is he thinks he's right. He thinks he has the moral high ground despite the abhorrent actions that he's committing to make his point. You can't do anything with someone who thinks they're right and will do anything and will justify it. Fuck you, is what I say. Anyway, that movie is so well done. And talk about bleak.
It is.
There is no hope in that movie.
No, not at all. I mean, talk about movies with no hope, like we've been talking about. Yeah, bring it up. We have a similar taste apparently in some of these themes. That's for sure.
Some of the darker ones are probably one of the few things that we do agree on.
That's funny.
Anyway, so that's number 5 for me. Very bleak. 7, it's a classic serial killer and just also righteous. It's a righteous killer sort of thing, which is fucked up. Anyway, for you, man, where do you want? Number 4? Ooh, we're at number 4.
We're at number 4. We're moving up the list. Now, this one is pretty controversial, actually. I know a lot of people didn't enjoy this one when it came out, but for me, I think it's the best Michael Myers movie, which is the Rob Zombie Halloween.
Oh, okay.
Honestly, I really enjoyed how we got a little bit more of a backstory into this morbid life and why he even murdered his family to begin with.
Okay.
Like, as a standalone thing without having a million sequels behind it, it's a solid, slasher flick. And I'm not really big into the slasher flicks. So for me, a good one was the Rob Zombie one. I thought the gore was great in there. I thought the stakes were high. I thought the murders were fun, especially on Halloween. That's one of the ones we go to. So anyway, for you, 4, what do you think? Is yours as controversial as mine? I feel scared that I even shared that was one of my favorites.
No, mine is moody and it does take place around Halloween and it's something that is a total cult movie. We've talked about it before and that's Donnie Darko.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I know it's not super scary or scary kind of at all, but apparently to other people it is incredibly unsettling. So anyway, Donnie Darko's number 4 for me, but actually, you know what? I'm gonna switch it out and I'm gonna go with From Dusk Till Dawn.
I didn't know we could change
I'm gonna switcheroo.
We could just swap
I'm
her out.
gonna swap it. No, I'm not gonna swap it for that. For atmosphere, I'm gonna swap it for Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow. You know what? I would actually say I watched Sleepy Hollow more often around Halloween than I do Donnie Darko. Sleepy Hollow's my number 4 on the list.
Change up.
Sleepy Hollow was an American Zoetrope production, and that is Francis Ford Coppola's company who did Dracula. And if you actually watch Sleepy Hollow now, they use a lot of the same tricks that they started with Dracula. You got to see like the evolved version.
This boy loves Dracula.
A couple of years later in Sleepy Hollow. That's interesting. So anyway, that's number 4 for me. I'm going to do a bait and switch. So what's number 3 for you?
Number 3 is something that I've brought up one too many times on this show, so we'll get through it quick. So I don't know if this counts as the monster movie thing that I should have mentioned earlier, but Monster Squad.
Yeah, that counts. That's a total monster movie. I haven't even seen it, and the whole thing is like based on the Universal monsters, right?
Basically, yeah.
Fuck yeah, that counts.
Van Helsing is like hunting down like actual Dracula, and then Dracula somehow comes back to life during the 80s and lands in this small town in Indiana or something like that. He like raises Frankenstein somehow, a mummy,
of course he does,
a werewolf, a swamp thing. It's pretty fucking funny, dude.
He gets the band back together.
Yeah, and so then these kids have to pick up where Van Helsing, left off. It shouldn't be that good of a movie. I watched that movie so many times as a kid.
And you're not the only one. I think my friend Ronnie White, who's been posting on our Facebook page, back to the podcast discussion.
Shout out. Pew, 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 pew.
Yeah, he's been posting that whenever you mention Monster Squad, I swear to God, he's posts something to be like, I love Monster Squad. You should do something about Monster Squad. So I know that there's an audience out there for that movie.
It's hard not to want to watch that around Halloween. It's got all the themes, all the elements, all these little monsters show up. As a kid, I totally related to those kids.
Yeah.
And we used to go up into my clubhouse and there were these Universal monsters and I had the whole collection. So we had those up in our clubhouse and we were our own Monster Squad. So nerdy. Love that movie though. So fun to watch that. You haven't seen it yet, right?
I still haven't seen it yet, but it's on my list because you love it so much.
Yeah, and I can't wait to hear your reaction to it. So for you though, number 3,
okay,
I'm assuming something psychological thriller. I'm just projecting.
Knowing
here.
me, yes, it is something we've talked about before. It is one of the most impactful movies, I would say, from a scar tissue point of view.
Psychic Chris.
What do you think would be number 3 on my list,
I
man?
mean, you bring it up so often, just as often as I've talked about Monster Squad. So I'm going to throw it out. Silence of the Lambs.
The Silence of the Lambs.
Oh my God, did I get it?
That is number 3 on my list.
We're starting to really get to know each other.
True.
The things that we love. So that's great though.
It only took us 25 episodes.
That's it.
So that's the idea. The Silence of the Lambs is how they said it. And I just even remember thinking the title, like, what does that mean? I want to watch that.
I'm 100% with you.
But it was dark enough, the idea. And for me, you know me, I'm into the psychological stuff. So there was like, I saw what that movie was really about. You know what I mean? And it wasn't even like, oh, someone could sneak in and kill me. I just saw the deeper thing of like someone trying to change themselves. And it goes back to Seven, like doing something that hurts other people for your own purpose, irrespective of the consequences and its effect on other people. And that's really terrifying to me. And as a kid, like that's something that really hooked me and really grabbed me and like drew me towards it, The Silence of the Lambs. And I still like, I think of it that way. If I see it on the shelf, it's like, it's got, you know, it's got bad juju. Like there's something. Anyway, so The Silence of the Lambs is really impactful. Number 3. So number 2, man, we're in the top 2.
So number 2 for me is actually another Patrick Wilson horror movie. I don't know why he got thrown into all of these horror films and stuff.
The Wilson verse.
I know, right? That's what it feels like. And I like him as an actor a lot. But it's Insidious.
You mentioned this on our spooky movie chat.
Yeah. So Insidious is once again.
I looked it up. You're right. Patrick Wilson.
One of those movies that just the wife and I both totally enjoy. I could have put a lot of movies into this one, but this is one that's just been rewatched enough. And once again, this was more about what is the movies that put us into the mood around Halloween, not our favorite scary movies and stuff. And this one just has a weird vibe to it. It's creepy. I like how they're messing with like his subconscious. And then the ending is definitely very, very creepy. So Insidious is number 2 for Chris. What's number 2 for Justin over there?
Okay, number 2 isn't scary at all, but I
really
adore it. And it is one of my Halloween movies. I watched it last night, and that is Casper. With Christina Ricci and Bill Pullman.
And a small Dan Aykroyd cameo, right? As a Ghostbuster.
Who are you gonna call? Someone else.
Eric Idle.
Are you a transient?
It's got Monty Python cred.
Yeah.
Did you know that was also an Amblin Entertainment?
Don't remember that.
Production, and that's Steven Spielberg's company.
Right. Yes, it is. Yeah.
That does all of his movies. And so they did a lot of really interesting effects stuff at that time because it came out in 1995. So this was, you know, they were in production in 94, which is just after Jurassic Park came out. So this was all really, really new technology. I thought they nailed it. I loved that movie.
Yeah.
And I put it on every year. So that's why it's number 2 on my list. Casper.
Yeah, man. I had a lot of fun. I saw that one in the theater, enjoyed that one for many years, but I haven't seen it in so long.
I like it. Okay. So we are.
That's
We're
it.
at number 1.
We're at number 1.
What's your number 1?
Number 1 is.
I know what it is.
Is so easy for me to pick. This is the one that for me just encapsulates Halloween and the things that I like most about sitting down and watching a horror movie. And that is Trick or Treat. I got my little man Sam right here, actually. Trick or Treat was an interesting concept. It was a college student made an animated thing that it ended up getting picked up and turned into a live action movie. I'm really hoping a sequel actually happens with it. And I know that you finally saw it for the first time. What, last night?
No, 3 nights ago.
But I saw you text me that you were sitting down to watch it,
because I knew you would love
which
it.
made me so happy.
I watched Trick or Treat.
And I've got to hear what you thought about it.
I loved that movie.
That makes me happy to hear. Yeah.
I saw exactly what you see in it. It knew what it was and it went for it, and I dug it. So I really did like Trick or Treat. That'll actually probably become one of my Halloween movies from now on. I think you started that one for me.
That leads us to number 1 with Justin, man. What is the top of the list for you?
The one we know, and that is Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula.
Oh, okay. So there we go. We're ending on Dracula. Right on.
It's my favorite. It's one of my favorite movies.
Okay.
Period. It has been with me for as long as I can remember. It's one of my favorite books. In fact, Dracula has very little to do with it. It's all about the people. Like, he's just this entity, this force that is, causing harm. And so, but that doesn't really play in a movie. So you kind of have to make Dracula, a little bit more. And then they added kind of the love story with Winona Ryder's character, Mina, and that's fine, whatever. But I love that movie because of how it was made. And it's kind of for the same reason I like Trick or Treat in a lot of ways. That's actually a good way to sum it up. There's a lot of trickery that is used, a lot of creative, innovative trickery stuff. That's a good film language, and Dracula is all over that. It is just from start to finish. Anyway, I love Bram Stoker's Dracula. It's one of my favorite soundtracks. I love that movie. I love that movie. That's number 1 on my list.
There we go. We made it to the top of the list. Can you believe it?
We did. That's our top 10. I want some honorable mentions, though.
Absolutely. Guys, once again, I could have put 30 more movies onto this list, but these really are some of my favorites. But some honorable mentions real quick. I'm going to go ahead and just give you my top 5 here that I could think of off the top of my head. And that is Zombieland. Obviously, just another great fun zombie movie and stuff.
My wife loves that movie. Not that I don't, but she really loves that movie.
Just a fun movie. I love that one.
It is. It's totally fun.
Then Beetlejuice. Always grew up on Beetlejuice. I love the atmosphere in that one, of course. Michael Keaton's
easily could have made it onto the list.
Catherine O'Hara, Winona Ryder. You guys know this one. Frighteners. We've talked about that once or twice, but The Frighteners, I think, is super underrated. Guys, if you've never seen The Frighteners, I think that is a fun movie to watch, especially around Halloween. And then the wife mentioned this because I was kind of drawing a blank and she totally nailed it. Drag Me to Hell.
Sam Raimi
directing that one. And then number 5, Cabin in the Woods. I've mentioned it tons on there. One of my favorites. That's the one I actually just recently rewatched while I was on the plane. Couldn't say no to it. Love Cabin in the Woods. So real quick, rapid fire. What are your honorable mentions that you couldn't put onto your top 10?
Okay, one of them is Tim Burton's Ed Wood. Is one of my honorable mentions. It's Halloween-y. It's black and white. It's one of my favorite kind of B cuts, you would say, of Tim Burton's body of work.
I like that movie. I'm surprised you're doing Halloween though.
So, he plays Dracula. It's all about monster movies and shit.
Yeah, okay. True.
And I think it's underappreciated. From Dusk Till Dawn by Robert Rodriguez.
Nice.
We've talked about that one. That one's just a bonkers Halloween movie. So after that, I would put Roman Polanski's The Ninth Gate.
Yeah.
And I saw that in the theater, and it's so weird, but it's about the occult, and I equate the occult with Halloween. It's an occult movie. I love books.
Okay.
It's about dark academia, which you can see is kind of like one of my styles. So that movie really suits me in a lot of ways. Leather-bound books by candlelight, I can dig. And then if you throw in the devil, I'm all for it. So then we've got The Addams Family, which we love. We're talking about the one with Angelica Houston and Raul Julia and Christina Ricci.
Such a good one.
Christopher Lloyd.
Yes.
We're talking about that one. And then The Witches, also with Angelica Houston.
Nice.
Love The Witches. We've talked about that one before. So those are my honorable mentions. Man, this was a great episode. I'm so happy we got to talk about.
I totally agree.
The list is going to be huge for this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, like I said, I could have mentioned so many more. Please, down in the comments, let us know what we forgot to even talk about. What are your favorite movies to watch around Halloween and stuff? What gets you into the spooky spirit? Like, subscribe, follow right on top of YouTube so we can start making more content that we know you love. And of course, we'll see you next time. Happy Halloween from me and Justin to you and yours.